it was quite a thing, and you got to fill me in on this, and I expect Joe to do this when they changed over from unit band and whatnot. But let's go back to that advanced course thing, because the point was, I used to get 12 to 14 people that would come back for the advanced course, and of course we had to audition them when they came in, because you're not going to be playing your horn much for a year, and some didn't make it through that. And then, they would put them in the refresher course. I guess they call that the intermediate course now, I suppose. I don't know. But when you go through this course, I don't have to tell you guys this, but for the benefit of whatever this is going to be afterward, we're going to turn these people loose with all this money, all this equipment, and these lives, and we're going to send them halfway around the world, where you're going to have, as you stated before, the balls to stand up before then a commissioned officer and say, hey, this is my band, and I'm the one that runs it. I've run into this more than once. And you've got to do that. You guys know it. Well, maybe you never ran into it, but I sure did. And, hey, you're the person that spent that time, and it's a very, very busy time. I can't speak of what goes on down at school, but I can't imagine it being too very, very much different than we did here. And now, when you got done with that first cruise, Captain Phillips, where'd you go then?
Well, I went to Boston. I followed Tom Adcock to Boston. And several of us, Otto Schabel, myself, and Lou Lanny.
Okay.
Who was the Barry player in the band at the time, and then Otto ended up at the Academy in later years. Still lives in Annapolis, as a matter of fact. And so we followed with Tom because we had a lot of respect for Tom, as a fleet bandmaster.
Bob Schott still says he's going to call Otto, but he never got to it yet.
There we go, yeah, he's still around.
That was your piano player.
He ended his career in the Air Force, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I went to Boston, and that's about the time that Tom made LDO and went from chief to ensign. You know how we floated in and out of the warrant programs through the years. Well, during that time frame, it was straight to ensign. He and Stan Serber made ensign together.
They were the first two.
Was of course, at the Naval
Academy. They were the first two.
Yeah. And they both passed on now, of course. Yeah. But and I stayed in Boston for a 2-year tour. 18 months or so. Anyway, I came back to the school for the refresher course. I was planning myself at this point. This is when I decided that I needed to stay in the Navy. I had just gotten married, and I had a kid on the way, and all of a sudden, reality was setting in quickly. So I re-enlisted. That's when I re-enlisted. It wasn't my intent when I first came. We were talking 61, which was right at the end of my first 4 years. And I came back to the school. I said, well, if I'm staying in, well, then I'm going for it all. And I went through the refresher course and got myself known around the school, and I got picked up to teach trombone on the staff at the school, 63 or so. And I followed the school down in Norfolk with J.D. McDonald. And as a footnote to what George was saying earlier about naming the hall after J.D., all of us that are music officers need to remember that probably none of us would have ever been one if it hadn't been for J.D. McDonald.
This is true.
And so that's worthy to be known. But anyway, going back a little bit, and I went on down to the school to Little Creek, and finally, after 2.5 years of teaching in those little cubicles, the walls were closing in, and I had just made chief, and I didn't go through the advanced course. I made it off the staff. I did supposedly the practical factors for it in my own way, but I didn't go through the course. I'm not a course graduate, so and then I said I'd like to take out a band. I'm a chief now. If there's any bands, and lo and behold, within a couple of months, they had one for me, Concrete SPAC. So I got orders to the West Coast. And I went out there, and lo and behold, I worked for Wild Bill Shelton. He was the E9 who was running the 3 bands that rotated out of Concrete SPAC in San Diego. I was this band's 106, 7, and 8. I had 108. And so I did a Westpac cruise during the Vietnam era. did a lot of time over there on the line, floating at sea, 55, 60 days at a pop without going ashore, and all of that during early parts of the Vietnam War. But Bill, getting back to Tom I feel was one of my mentors, but Bill was a big mentor for me because Bill was one of the guys that I'm sure is the reason that I got selected as an officer. Bill really, Bill
Hard charger.
He was, and he was very outspoken, and he would tell it the way he saw it to whomever, anytime. And he knew a lot of the people. I mean, I think you relieved him, or he relieved you in Naples. Getting off, but anyway, Bill wrote me nice evaluations and heaped a lot of praise to the music branch about the band I was doing as the chief band leader. And then after I finished that tour, I got orders back to the school as audition supervisor and any other sundry jobs they'd had me to do around there. And that's about the time I made ALDL, 1967. Well, I made warrant officer, actually, W1. I was a pinstripe warrant for 2 years. Then finally in 69, got my W2 and then made ensign within a couple of months, not too long after that. Then I came to the Naval Academy in 1971. But I had some very unique opportunities in my career. I mean, very unique. Here I was as a pinstripe warrant leading the band that's a 05 billet today. It used to was, I don't know if it is now, Sinclair Fleet Band with the band in Norfolk, which at that time Sinclair Fleet, I think it's not called that now.
No.
Fleet Forces.
Anyway, there we go. Well, I mean, here I am as a W1, and I'm working for the Supreme Allied Commander Atlantic, Sinclair, and Sinclair Fleet, and Admiral Holmes. And he was a taskmaster too, but I got through unscathed. And then I come to the academy as a fresh ensign, and things transpired there. Don Patterson left, and Ned Muffley took over, and then Ned took over from Stauffer not that long later here at the band. And I ended up inherited the Naval Academy band as a JG. So I mean, and again, this is another 05 billet, isn't it? So I had a chance to, it's just the way things worked out. It's not that I was so great, it's just that I was one of the senior guys at that point to do whatever job they needed at that point. So I fell into a lot of wonderful jobs along the way like that had a very junior aspect. And so
I tell the story on Phil Field. This is if anybody, and you didn't plan it this way, but it worked out so great that his last job was the bureau.
That's the truth.
He was a band director, and he finally went to the bureau. Last, I said, I don't know how in the world this happened, but it did. Because I got 10 of those people. Were you in basic at the same time? No, you were before him, I think.
Bill and I were in Boston together.
Yeah.
And we were, when I was in the fresher course, he was in the advanced course under your band, Band 3.
Yeah.
You remember how each of you were mentors for each of the bands?
Yeah.
Ned Muffley had Band 1.
Right.
And Al Beck was in the advanced course class. You had Band 3, and Phil was your #1 guy.
Well, they were both in the same class. That was next to my last class.
That's right.
That was my 14th class. Okay. Yeah. They were next to my last.
I remember that band competition we had. And you remember Al was very sharp as a drum major with a stick. And Phil wasn't bad himself. And somehow you or someone had taught Phil this particular way to flip the baton out in front of the band, then go by and pick it up as you go by it. And I was in Band 3 at the time. I was in the refresher course. I didn't have to march with the basic students during that drill, but still I was pulling for them because I was junior to Phil at that point. Although later I became senior to Phil, but at that point he was in first class. I was a junior first class, and he was fairly senior first class. And he drum majored. You don't remember that? And we beat Band 1. Everybody thought Band 1 would win because Ned, being known as
that was
Clean.
Ned's field, not mine.
and Al, was very sharp. I mean, he was Ned Muffley made over at that particular point in his career.
Yeah.
And but I remember that competition to this day. That was very interesting.
Oh, so let's go back over here to Gambone here, being a junior, and I've got to sit you and your dad down because he.
Technically, I'm not a junior.
What?
I'm not a junior.
You're not a junior.
No.
Okay, you got a different middle name or something.
Yes.
Okay, well, for most.
But everybody calls me junior.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I used to.
They don't look alike.
It might be the Ralph part.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
He and I both had the same first bandmaster. Okay, not at the same time.
Right.
But we commiserate about that a lot. So tell me about yourself. You told me quite a bit. I mean, you spent a lot of time down in the academy, and then you came up here. Tell me about when you took the band out to the West Coast, because that was your taste of fleet stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I went.
So you had
Well,
been.
of course, I'd already been overseas. I'd gone to Sixth Fleet. I left Academy.
Oh, okay.
Enlisted, went to Sixth Fleet.
All right. Who were you there with?
That was great. Jerry Clemens was
Okay.
first.
All right.
And then the Great Gate, Larry Gatewood was my second band officer.
Okay.
And I was out there, and Clemens, when I first got out there, sat me down. He invited me over to his house, he and his wife, and then he sat in the living room and he said, "I have a letter here, and it's from O.L. McMillan." No, sorry, it was from I can't remember his name. It'll come to me. Anyway, he was the head of the bureau at the time. And it says that I'm supposed to take care of you while you're out here and give you lots of chances to excel, so to speak, and to teach me the ways of the fleet while I'm out there. So, and I said, okay, well, that's great. And Jerry was a terrific guy, and he gave me lots of opportunities, and I always appreciated that. And then the Great Gate, Larry Gatewood, came out, and he was a totally different kind of guy, and we butted heads for a while, and then we got to be good buddies and friends, and I learned a lot from him.
See, that's a great thing, because no two of us are alike.
Right.
Go ahead.
So yeah, exactly, and so that was I spent almost 2 years out in Sixth Fleet. I did everything from flag plot watches to I was the admin guy, so for a long stint there, I was with the ship, and the band was elsewhere, and I was doing the airlift request and doing all the correspondence and doing all that. So I was learning about this process.
All those are learning processes.
So when Al Beck was actually the assistant to
He was at the bureau.
Yeah. This is terrible. I can't remember his name, and it's
Marty
just
Ford.
no. I just can't.
Did Al go there before Lou retired?
For who?
Lou Lawton. He was. That
Oh, I don't know.
Right.
I know that he was the assistant at the time, and he was he's another mentor besides Captain, and of course my father and other folks. But he wanted to see me go over there and do well, and come back and pursue the officer route. That's what he wanted me to do, and I thought that's what I wanted to do at the time. And so I went out there and did that, and then they sent me back, and I came to my first tour with the Navy Band right after that. Ned Muffley needed a clarinet player, and they sent me back here, and I was here for about 2.5, 3 years, and then I went to the bureau and worked with Bill Britton. He's the supply and fiscal officer over there, chief, and then I got selected for ensign, from there, and.
So you went to Westpac too.
Well, I went from there. My first duty was Chinfo.
Okay.
I always said that I never had a bad duty station in the Navy, and if there was one, it would have been Chinfo. But as it turned out, it turned out to be probably one of the most rewarding from all that I learned over there. I mean, the stuff that I learned at Chinfo, when I got from there, I went to San Diego. That's my point. Getting to San Diego, I went to San Diego, but I felt very well prepared by the time I had the bureau and Chinfo. I had everything covered, and the fleet. And those things really prepared me well. So yeah, I went to San Diego. Love San Diego. Terrific place. Probably I could live there. I mean, I liked it that much.
So you had the band in San Diego.
I had the band.